Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lindsay Unfiltered. And today we will be following up with the P Diddy and Ashley Parham lawsuit. We read the first 20 pages. This document is 61 or 62 pages in length, so I decided to chop it up so we can talk, generate a conversation, and continue to follow this Diddy story. If you like content like this that revolves around scandal, controversy, true crime with a twist of humor, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are at 1,657 followers, and I thank each and every one of you. We will be diving into a lot of different stories on this channel. We've talked about Gypsy Rose's case. We have an A to Z scandal series. We will be continuing shortly. I believe we're on the letter N. I cover a scandal from A to Z. So if you want to check that out, check the playlist. If you want to check the playlist for Gypsy Rose out, check that out. We have looked at some true crime cases, some scandalous cases, and also have been covering some things that have been breaking or trending. So if you like content like that, make sure to check us out, follow us, ride the wave with us. But without further ado, let's get into the reading of page 20 to 40 of this lawsuit. Okay, here we are, and we are back reading from pages 21 to page 40. And we left off where Ashley had called the police, and she said they did nothing for her after Diddy, these four men, Christina Coram, and all of these people allegedly assaulted her. Now, let's pick up here. On March 26, 2018, Plaintiff contacted her primary care doctor and asked for an HIV and STD test in fear of possibly having contracted a disease from her violent you-know-what. Plaintiff tried to continue her life as she felt she wouldn't be believed, as Plaintiff already told Contra Costa Sheriff's Department Diddy did this to her to no avail. Further, Plaintiff was under the impression if she did continue to say his name in relation to her assault, she would not be believed, and her family would be in danger. Seemingly mere days, maybe even the day before it happened to her, Shane began miraculously driving a new car. Plaintiff believes this was payment by defendant Diddy for setting her up. Now that's a stretch in my opinion. There's no proof. There's no way we would be able to prove that Diddy gave him a new car to do this to you, to set you up. There's no way. There's no way you'd be able to prove that. So, including things that cannot be proven by any circumstance, I feel like it's just... A few weeks later, in April 2018, Plaintiff, still in pain and reeling from the horrific assaults, went to the hospital as her injuries had not subsided from the assault. The hospital conducted several tests on her, including a kit, ultrasound, and x-rays. Additionally, she was given IV fluids to stabilize her vitals as she was in a severe weakened state from being unable to eat and losing a substantial amount of weight since it occurred. While at the hospital, she told members of her treatment team about her assault. And then they contacted the Walnut Creek police. Wow, these generic ass police stations. Contra Costa, Walnut Creek. Like, who named y'all? Walnut Creek police showed up to Plaintiff's hospital room and took a statement regarding her assault on March 23rd. Plaintiff had already told Contra Costa sheriffs about her assault and that it was Diddy who orchestrated it. On March 23, 2018, which was ignored, declined to refer to Diddy again to Walnut because she believed she would be ignored by Walnut, just as she was by Contra Costa, and or would be farther harmed by Diddy if she discovered she named him to the police. Plaintiff only told Walnut Creek police about the assault from Shane and Doe 2. So what about Doe 1? Doe 1 was involved. You said you left Diddy out. Why'd you leave Doe 1 out? Fill in the blanks here, honey. I'm on your side. All of the signs from people in the past point to people in your corner, honey. In your corner, all the way in there. But you need to tell us what is going on here. You left out Doe 1 as well. Plaintiff believes her statements to Walnut Creek police while at the hospital was captured by body cam footage. So you told on Shane and you told on Doe 2. And you didn't even mention that P Diddy was around that night. So plaintiff also filed a report to the Orinda Police Department on April 17, 2018, but again was too afraid to name Diddy as one of her assailants. During this report, plaintiff provided her clothing to the police from the night of the assault, but they only retained her underwear. To date, the underwear was never returned, and plaintiff believes no investigation ever occurred. She sought assistance from therapists in May 2018, one of which tried to have her therapy appointments covered by a victims' compensation fund, which was rejected because Ashley was told no law enforcement agency had opened an active investigation into or many reports of this. Okay, so she was too afraid to name Diddy when she filed these reports, but she named the other two men, and she believes nothing came of it. So if she's saying this, if Ashley's saying that she filed a report with Walnut Creek, if she's saying she filed a report with Orinda, those should be on record. Those should be on file, right? Those should be able to be retained. And if you can draw some type of relationship, between Doe 2 and Diddy and Shane and Diddy, you may have a case here, right? Because she's saying she has proof, police reports, but she said nothing was ever opened, right? Police may do that sometimes. They might not have enough information and just never take heed to shit you're telling them until shit hits the fan, right? Subsequently thereafter, plaintiff asked police for a copy of her report from the Walnut Creek Police Department. On July 19, 2018, plaintiff was provided a letter from Walnut Creek Police Department stating that it was unable to furnish this information as it is confidential and not subject to public release, despite plaintiff not being the public and the victim. Well, they should have record of it, right? Now that it's a national lawsuit, let's see it. Let's see the address. Does it match up? Okay. In March 2024, plaintiff was re-traumatized by all of the events surrounding Diddy, including the several civil complaints filed against him, as well as the raid on his residences. She called Contra Costa again in hopes of renewing her complaint and amending it to ensure Diddy's name was included. She received no response from sheriff. In July 2024, Ashley then emailed the chief of the sheriff's office regarding her complaint, lack of investigation, and how she was treated by the initial responding officer. Plaintiff then received a call back from a detective, but nothing further. Plaintiff then began seeking legal counsel for her claims, ultimately being referred to get a lawyer. So if this is true and the police ignored this woman for all of those years, why? Why? Her lawyers also attempted to get a copy of the police report from the Contra Costa sheriffs, the ones that she initially told, but was told they would not provide the report or any other information without a subpoena. I wonder if she'll be included in Diddy's criminal investigation. Therefore, they'll be required to give up a subpoena. Let's go over some causes of action, shall we? The first cause of action. As set forth above, the Diddy sexual abuse and cover-up enterprise was designed and used as a tool to enable Diddy and the Diddy sexual abuse and cover-up enterprise participants to participate in a pattern of racketeering activity. Section 1964C provides that any person injured in his business or property by reason of a violation of section 1962 of this chapter may sue therefore in any appropriate United States district court and shall recover threefold the damages he sustains and the cost of suit, including a reasonable attorney's fee. 18 U.S.C. The Diddy sexual abuse and cover-up enterprise falls within the meaning of 18 U.S.C. and consists of a group of persons associated together for the common purpose of endorsing and facilitating Diddy's harassment. That is all of his employees. A group of persons associated together for the common purpose of facilitating what he is doing. That is where the RICO comes in, the racketeering comes in. Including Ashley, threatening and misleading Diddy's victims to prevent the reporting, disclosure, or prosecution of his acts, and intervening in Ashley's efforts to report by concealing and refusing to report Diddy's offenses to the appropriate authorities, including law enforcement. Defendants have conducted and participated in the affairs of the sexual abuse and cover-up enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, which includes multiple instances of obtaining a victim for the purpose of committing or attempting to commit aggravated abuse in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1590, as described above, facilitating and financially benefiting from forced labor and trafficking in violation of 18 U.S.C. and instances of transporting women, specifically plaintiff in the instant case, for the purposes of furthering the common purposes of the abuse and cover-up enterprise, including photography, videos, and other immoral purposes in violation of 18 U.S.C., also known as the Mann Act. The Diddy abuse and cover-up enterprise engaged in and affected interstate commerce, where defendants utilized phone lines to make arrangements for Diddy to further his illicit activities. Each participant in the sexual abuse and cover-up enterprise had a systematic linkage to each other participant through personal relationships and employment relationships, and functioned, I love it, and function as a continuing unit for the purpose of furthering the scheme and their common purposes. Oh yeah, that's 151. 151, take a note of it. That sums it up. Read it again. Each participant in this enterprise had a linkage to each other through personal relationships and employment relationships, and function as a continuing unit. A continuing unit for the purpose of furthering the scheme and their common purposes. I get that. It's like a family, a crime family, right? Defendants, upon information and belief, also used the internet and other electronic facilities to carry out the scheme and conceal the ongoing sexual and fraudulent activities taking place within the abuse and cover-up enterprise. What? The wire transmissions described herein were made in furtherance of defendant's scheme and common purpose. What wire transmissions? Oh, over the phone. I thought they were talking about money. They're talking about over the phone. Okay. Defendant's scheme and above described racketeering activities accounted to a common course of conduct intended to cause Ashley and others to hide, conceal Diddy's abuse. Each such racketeering activity was related, had similar purposes, involved the same or similar participants, and methods of commission had similar results affecting similar victims, including Ashley. Defendants' fraudulent activities are part of their ongoing business and constitute continuing threat to Ashley. The pattern of racketeering activity alleged herein and the sexual abuse cover-up enterprise are separate and distinct from each other. It's engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity alleged herein for the purpose of conducting the affairs for the abuse and cover-up enterprise. Diddy and Diddy's SA and cover-up enterprise created and perpetrated a toxic culture that allowed Diddy's abuse to flourish. Diddy's abuse took over like the plague, like a COVID, right? But there was no vaccine for it. There was no one looking to make a vaccine for it. There was no one looking to stop it. There was no one looking to actively stop the threat. There was only people feeding into it. So the bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger it got, you just had people falling into the trap and no one trying to prevent what was going on, right? He had extensive power and influence on others due to his prominent status as a mogul, his fame and notoriety. Diddy had command. Diddy had means, access, and influence to provide individuals with a career in the entertainment industry and other industries through his dominant stature in the entertainment industry and connections afforded him due to his fame and notoriety. Diddy had authority. Diddy at all times was a mogul and a billionaire who cultivated relationships with some of the most influential individuals through his highly sought after parties and notoriety in the music industry. Diddy had control. Diddy controlled who did what, when, and how within his circle of friends and employees, including KK, Shane, and Doze. Doze 1 through 10,000. Allegedly, if defendants failed to comply with covering up Diddy's abuse and assaults, they would be terminated, blackballed, or find themselves in legal trouble. Diddy had power. Ashley attempted to report that it was in fact Diddy had assaulted her, but instead was met by disregard by the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department. And she also alleged that they wouldn't even give her goddamn police report. All right, let's continue. Diddy and the Diddy abuse cover-up enterprise were designed to manipulate, control, assault, and prevent individuals from coming forward. Defendants KK, Shane, Doze knowingly benefited from the abuse and cover-up enterprise as they retained employment benefits and other monetary benefits. Specifically, defendant Shane mysteriously had a brand new car upon information and belief provided to him by defendant Diddy in thanks and appreciation for facilitating the assault on Plaintiff. Now, I don't know, that's a stretch for me. You can't tell where this guy got a car from. You can't tell where this guy got a car from, right? Okay. KK, Shane, and Doze willfully ignored the dangers of Diddy's conduct and pattern of harassment, assault, abuse, and misconduct, only for their sole personal economic benefit. Reports to police were ignored. Others who complained about Diddy's egregious behavior were ignored until Ventura sued Diddy. Since Ventura's bravery, countless individuals have come forward and filed complaints regarding abuse at the hands of Diddy. The chorus of victims and evidence obtained by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York ultimately led to Diddy being indicted for RICO violations and trafficking, among other charges. The Diddy abuse and cover-up enterprise and his members protected Diddy, therefore allowing Diddy to continue with sordid and egregious SA practices, intimidated witnesses and victims from reporting Diddy's crimes, and interfered with investigations concerning his abuse. Most notably, a video showing Diddy abusing Ms. Ventura was covered up and sold to him. Oh my goodness, talk about it. Oh my goodness, let's talk about it. It was sold to him. It was covered up and sold to him, and then it was leaked, and that's what it took. And that's what it took for some people to say, oh damn, he's not who he says he is. He did do that to her. Y'all didn't believe Cassie at first. So my thing is, do you need to see a tape of everything P Diddy did for you to believe that he's doing this? Do you think it's the first time he did this to Cassie? Do you think it's the first time he hit a woman? Do you think he hit any other woman? Do you think he's hit any other man? Like, come on, be for real. The assault is there. The abusive nature of a person is there, right? And I'm going to say the same thing about, I said the same thing about R. Kelly. I said the same thing about Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, right? People are not going to come out of bushes and backpacks and dumpsters to accuse you of stuff like that in sordid detail if none of it is true? Where are all these women bouncing out of to say these things in this detail? You were going to give her a Glasgow smile. Who the makes that up unless they are insane? I mean, they could be making it up. Some of the lawsuits could be made up, but people don't come jumping out of trash cans to say that you hurt children or you hurt women if you don't do it. Like it's just I don't see it. So why aren't people talking about who's a good humble person? Who's a good humble person? Why aren't people talking about the Pope? Why aren't people talking about the Pope? Like, have you seen 30 women come out against the Pope? Have you seen 20 women come out against, I don't even know. Like, have you seen, think about a male figure that you like. Have you seen 50, 60, 70 women come out and said they did something to him? Have you seen one? I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, one person might lie on you, two might, 3, 4, or 5, but all of those people are colluding against you. I just don't see it. In the instant case, Diddy was aided and abetted by his network of employees, including KK, Doe 1, his personal bodyguard, who was unknown to plaintiff then and now, Doe 3, the driver, who helped them escape and evade capture after Ashley's escape. KK, Shane, and Doe's were members of the SA and cover-up enterprise and facilitated, benefited from, had knowledge of, or should have known of Diddy's proclivities and predatory behavior. KK, Shane, and Doe's assisted in Diddy's predatory behavior and proclivities by setting up Ashley to be assaulted by Diddy, as well as assisting in the cover-up of the crime thereafter. Defendants KK, Shane, Doe's provided Diddy with the means to effectuate his crimes, including carrying the pills used to disable plaintiff, as well as the means to escape once Ashley finally regained her faculties, right? Plaintiff has been injured in her person by reason and as a result of these defendants' conduct in furtherance of the abuse enterprise and resulting RICO violations. Plaintiff has been injured in her person. As detailed above, plaintiff has suffered direct and severe damage to her professional and personal well-being as a result of the assault and harassment perpetrated and allowed by the defendants. Diddy's assault and defendant's RICO violations have caused plaintiff to suffer from severe emotional distress, including developing an eating disorder and extreme weight loss, causing several hospitalizations, as well as extensive need for therapy. And therapy ain't cheap, let me tell you. Therapy ain't cheap. It's about $150 to $300 an hour. Tell me about it. It depends who you go to. It depends. You can get some free therapy, some free group therapy, but if you're looking for a specialized therapist that will talk to you like you're a human, $150 to $300 an hour. Why do you think most people pass it up? Because first of all, you were talking about my issues and things I don't want to talk about, and I'm paying you $300 an hour? That's a lot of money to be uncomfortable. That's a lot of money to be uncomfortable. I'll pay $300 to go get in a jacuzzi and lay out on the beach, but I gotta pay $300 to talk about my problems. I mean, I encourage everybody to go to therapy. I go to therapy like every 2 weeks. But at one point, I was in a place where I had to switch therapists. I had a really good therapist. I think it was like my soulmate. She was like my soulmate of therapists. I feel like you can have a soulmate in life and you can have a soulmate for therapy. You know, your therapist and you kind of have a relationship like you either have a connection, you either have chemistry with your therapist or you don't, right? You either feel comfortable talking to them or you don't. But this person was like my soulmate therapist, right? So I just felt safe, right? And she stopped taking insurance, went to private pay, and I couldn't afford it anymore. I couldn't afford it. $150 to $200 an hour, right? A lot. And I feel like I was really getting help during that time, you know? So all of them goddamn therapy sessions, Diddy, if this is true, all of them goddamn therapy sessions this woman then went through, oh yeah, you're going to pay. You're going to pay. As a result of defendant's actions, plaintiff has continued to experience fear and anxiety and also sought professional help on numerous occasions since the egregious assault, including several hospitalizations, visits to her personal physician and therapist. Diddy's assaults and defendant's RICO violations have caused plaintiff to be fearful, distressed, disregarded, degraded, and depressed. Plaintiff has gained a global distrust for individuals. Well, you should probably keep that, honey, because people ain't shit. If not for defendant Diddy's direct action and atmosphere cultivated by him and the defendants who were members of the SA and cover-up enterprise, she would have not developed several issues that severely impact her life and livelihood. So she's saying Diddy's actions, the people in that house's actions that night, severely impacted the rest of the course of her life. So she needs to get paid, allegedly, okay? Her issues and overall health has been exacerbated. Oh, the words Ariel is using. Is this Ariel? I don't know who wrote this. I think it's Ariel, the new attorney who's coming out, who said she saw a tape. I'm like, girl, what tape did you see and who gave it to you? Speak up. By ongoing trauma of not being believed, the damage to her person is incalculable. Plaintiff has experienced years of anxiety and depression since this. That occurred in 2018. PTSD as well. Her anxiety and depression was compounded by the lack of care and complete disregard of her reports to law enforcement. Even when plaintiff was brave enough to name defendant Diddy to the police, when called immediately after the incident, she was dismissed and treated as if she was lying due to the fame and overall public support of Diddy at the time. Which speaks to the widespread influence Diddy has over the general public at large. And it speaks to the widespread influence Diddy still has. People need to see stuff. If somebody loves a celebrity, they need to see a tape in front of their face for them to say, oh, my favorite celebrity did that. These people are delusional about the celebrities that they love, right? I've listened to some of Diddy's shit. I've listened to some of Diddy's records. I have enjoyed many of Diddy's artists, right? I'm not going to sit up here and act like, oh, I never listened to that guy. He influenced my parents' life and mine. So I'm not going to sit up here and act like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. He did have a widespread influence over me as well. But older people, let's speak up. Let's speak up. Let's be a little bit unfiltered here. Let's speak up. Older people tend to think not talking. Older people tend to think that sometimes not talking is the answer. If a man takes advantage of you, maybe you shouldn't say anything because no one's gonna believe you anyway. This is a man's world, and I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna push a pin in that because I'm not gonna dig too deep into it. At all relevant times, defendants were aware of the essential nature and scope of the second prize and intended to participate in it. Now let's talk about the second cause of action. Violation of Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, Conspiracy 18, USC. All right. 181 is repeated, and we're not going over that again. Each defendant agreed to commit the substantive racketeering offense through agreeing to participate in racketeering acts. Each enterprise member agreed to commit the substantive racketeering offense through agreeing to participate in racketeering acts. Each defendant knew the general status of conspiracy was to enable and cover up Defendant Diddy's decades worth of abuses. Each enterprise member knew the general status of the conspiracy was to enable and cover up Diddy's decades worth of sexual abuses. Why did you write that twice? Each defendant knew the conspiracy extended beyond their individual role. As set forth above, each defendant agreed and conspired to violate 18 U.S.C. specifically in an effort to enable, protect, aid, secrete, and cover up each of Defendant Diddy's assaults. Defendant Diddy's pattern and practice of abuse and his battery against Ashley. Defendants agreed to engage in each of the predicate offenses identified above. Defendants knew their predicate acts were part of a pattern of racketeering activity and agreed to the commission of those acts to further the schemes described above, constituting a conspiracy to violate. Third cause of action, battery. Now, this is against defendants Diddy, Shane, Doe's 1 through 2. So not the women. Defendant committed acts with the intent to cause a harmful or offensive contact with an intimate part of Ashley. The offensive and unwanted contact with Ashley directly resulted from the defendant's said acts. Diddy exploited his position of authority to intimidate, overwhelm, and subdue plaintiff with the assistance of defendants Shane, KK, and Doe's 1 through 2. Any objections to his conduct would be met with retaliation. Diddy abused his position of power and authority over plaintiff, who was in no position to reject his assault due to her being physically outnumbered, unable to vacate the premises, and having her clothes, purse, cell phone, and keys hidden from her. Diddy, Shane, Doe's 1 through 2, battery on plaintiff, caused physical injury, severe emotional and mental distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life. Defendants' unlawful actions were intentional, done with malice, and or showed a deliberate, willful, wanton, and reckless indifference to plaintiff's rights. Plaintiff claims punitive damages herein. The amount of damages sought herein exceeds the jurisdictional limits of all other courts which would otherwise have jurisdiction. If you guys want to know how much he's asking for, $50 million. Fourth cause of action, California Civil Code, SA, against Diddy, Shane, and Doe's 1 through 2. Plaintiff incorporates by reference and realleges each of the preceding paragraphs and all paragraphs below. I've already read 199 before. This is against the four men again. Defendants touched an intimate part of Ashley against her will for arousal, gratification, or abuse. Defendants committed an act of penetration against plaintiff's will by means of force, drugging, violence, duress, menace, or fear of immediate and unlawful bodily injury to plaintiff. Defendant's conduct placed Ashley in a reasonable apprehension of bodily harm. Defendant's actions caused plaintiff to fear retaliation in the future, and there was a reasonable possibility that defendants, specifically Diddy, could execute on a threat of retaliation. Defendant's assault on plaintiff caused physical injury, severe mental and emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life. Defendant's unlawful actions were intentional, done with malice and or with a deliberate, willful, wanton, and reckless indifference to plaintiff's rights. Defendants conspired to and did engage in a cover-up or attempted a cover-up of previous instances of SA by Diddy. Newly enacted CCP, effective January 1st, 2023, is the governing California state statute extending the statute of limitations and granting revival of a plaintiff's claim seeking to recover damages suffered as a result of a SA that occurred on Ashley. The amount of damages sought herein exceeds the jurisdictional limits of all other courts, which would otherwise have jurisdiction. Fifth cause of action, harassment. Civil Code 51.9. Now, this is against the men again. We've read 209. Defendants made advances, solicitations, requests, demand for compliance by plaintiff, as well as engaged in other verbal, visual, or physical conduct of a smegdual nature or a hostile nature based on plaintiff's gender, all of which were unwelcome and pervasive or severe. Defendants intentionally, recklessly, and wantonly acts resulted in a harmful and offensive contact with the intimate parts of plaintiff persons. Diddy specifically used his authority to coerce and exploit Shane to luring plaintiff into his home so that Diddy could physically, psychologically, and or emotionally through force, manipulation, emotional abuse, intimidation, and retaliation abuse Ashley. These acts were done for Diddy's gratification. Plaintiff has suffered economic loss or disadvantage and or personal injury, including but not limited to emotional distress as a result of their conduct. Plaintiff is entitled to actual damages and exemplary damages pursuant to California Civil Code Section 52, Subdivision B, in an amount to be awarded at trial. Sixth cause of action, battery. Now, this is against everyone except for the driver, right? Defendants intended to commit and committed acts of unwanted contact with plaintiff. Diddy, Shane, Does 1 and 2 committed unwanted contact with plaintiff in a harmful and offensive manner. Those were all the men, including but not limited to inflicting abuse against her. Among other batteries, Diddy, Shane, Does 1 and 2 abused plaintiff without her consent and without equality. Diddy exploited his position and status to intimidate, overwhelm, and subdue plaintiff. Any objections to his conduct would be met with retaliation, not only by Ashley, but the other defendants involved. Diddy abused his position of power and influence over Ashley, who was in no position to reject his advances. The batteries on Ashley caused injury, mental and emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life. Defendants' unlawful actions were intentional, done with malice, and or showed a deliberate, willful, wanton, and reckless indifference to plaintiff's rights. The plaintiff claims punitive damages herein. The amount of damages sought herein exceeds the jurisdictional limits of all of the courts which would otherwise have jurisdiction. The next cause of action, assault. This is against everybody except for the driver. This is against everyone except for the driver and that blonde woman, you know. Defendants intentionally attempted, threatened, and committed harmful and offensive contact against plaintiff, including but not limited to inflicting sexual abuse and physical abuse against plaintiff. Defendants' conduct placed plaintiff in reasonable apprehension of bodily harm. Defendants' assaults on plaintiff caused physical injury, severe mental and emotional distress, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of enjoyment of life. Eighth cause of action, negligence. Plaintiffs, this is for Shane and Shane alone. Defendant Shane invited plaintiff to his home as a guest. Defendant Shane owed plaintiff a right to expect protection from the other defendant, specifically Diddy, while a guest in his home. As a direct and proximate result of the foregoing negligence, plaintiff was harassed, assaulted, and abused by Diddy, Shane, Does 1 and 2, causing plaintiff bodily injuries, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and loss of capacity for the enjoyment of life. The losses are either permanent or continuing, and plaintiff will suffer losses in the future. Ninth cause of action, negligent failure to warn. This is against everybody except Diddy. Defendant's conduct created a risk of physical emotional harm to Ashley. Defendants knew and had reason to know that plaintiff was at risk of assault and abuse by Diddy. Despite the knowledge of the danger in the participation in the abuse and cover-up enterprises, defendants did not alert plaintiff to the risk of assault, harassment, kidnapping, or other attacks by defendant Diddy. In fact, defendants facilitated and assisted defendant Diddy in his illegal, deviant activities and despicable behavior. Defendant Shane specifically represented to plaintiff that she would be safe while a guest in his home and would be free of risk of attack. This is my first time hearing this part. Defendant, specifically Shane, had reason to know that plaintiff would be unaware of the risk of SA, harassment, kidnapping, physical assault, and other attacks while being a guest in defendant's home or his association with Diddy or the Diddy SA and cover-up enterprise. A warning to Ashley by any defendant that she was at risk of SA, harassment, kidnapping, assault, or any other attacks by defendant Diddy or any other defendant would have reduced the risk of harm to plaintiff, who could have taken safety precautions and avoided being a guest in defendant's home and completely avoided the attack that she suffered. As a legal and direct result of the aforementioned conduct and omission of defendant's, plaintiff was assaulted, harassed, kidnapped, or otherwise attacked and robbed for her dignity and personal safety. The depraved attacks on plaintiff caused her to suffer serious psychological and physical harm from which she may never fully recover. As a direct and legal result of defendant's failure to warn, plaintiff suffered damages, both economic and general non-economic damages, according to proof. We've gone through the causes of action mostly in this second video, breaking down each cause of action they have to bring this suit to trial and specifically aligning which defendant is responsible for which cause of action. I do like how the lawyer did that because there's several defendants, there's several causes of action, but not each defendant is liable for each cause of action. So I definitely like the way they did that at the end. They have several causes of action. We are at the 10th cause of action. There's even more causes of action. With there being so many defendants in this case, you're going to have a lot of things going on in the background there. But what I want to express before I wrap it up, I guess what the lawyer and Ashley are trying to allege here is that not only is Diddy the monster here, he has a society, he has a group, he has a entourage of people lifting him up. He has a society of people helping him build the foundation to do what he's doing. And without that foundation, it wouldn't have gotten this far. Oh my God, I'm getting gray hair, y'all. My locks are going gray. Like, girl, I need to dye my hair or something. You see them all, like all the little grays, but sorry, sometimes I go off on tangents, but that is the biggest thing for me. It's not like Diddy was this guy with a mask on grabbing women, right? It was set up like a business, and everybody had their job to play in this, on this stage, allegedly. You had the medicine lady, you had the bodyguard, you know, you had the driver, you had the people to subdue her, you had the people to treat them, you had everything you needed by people who shouldn't have been supporting you doing what you were doing, but they did it for economic and financial gain. I feel like that's where the whole enterprise situation comes in, right? And it looks good because it's like, oh, this person works for my liquor company, oh, this person works for my Revolt TV company, but behind the scenes, they will do anything for you, and they mean anything, right? So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up on that note. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys think this is a valid lawsuit? Do you guys think that P Diddy will ever see the light of day? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to read the last 22 pages. Be looking out for that this week. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, all of those good things. This has been Lindsay Unfiltered. Thank you so much. Bye now.